morning, everybody. Happy Sunday morning. We are in the home stretch. Last few lessons we got, seeing how we can build lifelong zeal. And so today we're going to continue talking about spreading the zeal. We have established, hopefully, a lot of things that help us see how we can start building zeal. Words are hard. Words are really hard. Vowels especially. Zeal. That's what we are doing. And we've seen how to do that. And hopefully now, this lesson in particular, we're going to look at how to spread that to others. And this is one of the things that I think help build this long-lasting zeal in a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But once you start spending time directly focusing in increasing zeal in others, it kind of tricks you into being more zealous yourself, which is really cool. And so this kind of helps us to continue in the whole process. Before we get started, though, Mickey, would you care to open us in prayer?
Dear God, thank you for the day. Thank you for letting us all be here this morning to learn more about you, to worship you, to do those things that we're commanded to do on the first day of the week. Thank you for Jason. Pray you be with him this morning as he directs our class. Pray that we'll be good students and listen closely and participate, that we all might benefit from our time here this morning. Thank you for all you do for us. Thank you for all the ones here at Southside, the congregation that we have. Continue to bless us. Continue to help us to always want to do more, know more about you, that we might be pleasing to you, to teach others and mentor others and lead others to you. Again, thank you for loving us. Thank you for being with us. Pray that all we do today will be a sweet aroma unto you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Would someone care to read 2 Timothy 2, verse 2, the verse at the top of page 93?
The things that you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also.
Thank you very much. So when you look at this verse, I really like this verse for a lot of reasons. But, okay, first of all, who wrote that? Paul wrote it, and who did he write it to? Timothy, right? And so this is kind of interesting because Paul is mentoring Timothy. That's kind of the relationship that they had. And so he's telling them that, what you've seen me do and the things that I've done, I want you to be able to use those and entrust those in faithful men. I want you to teach that to other people. But then he goes a step further, and what does he say that they need to be able to do?
They might be able to take what they learned and teach others also. Okay,
perfect. And that's kind of it changes the way that you approach teaching. Because it's one thing to teach something to somebody. It's almost like, I have knowledge, here it is, go. But if you teach someone else to teach someone else, it sets you up with this self-sustaining cycle of knowledge that you can continue on. And that's kind of what we need to do, because it's one thing to tell someone how to live a godly life, but it's also something completely different to tell someone how to tell others how to live godly lives and how to build that. And then it's just this cascade effect. What would happen, would you imagine, if we were not good at that? If we didn't teach others how to teach others? Yeah. We'll just die, because there's nothing sustainable about that. Because it doesn't matter if you have the greatest teacher ever, right in front of you. You could have this person who is a great teacher. When they die, what happens to their teaching? I mean, yeah, some people might remember it, but then a couple generations later, it's nobody knows who that was. But if this great teacher is able to teach others, who will teach others, who will teach others, who will teach others how to teach others, so they'll teach others how to teach others, then we got something good going on. And I think that's exactly what Jesus was doing with his disciples. And hopefully we can continue that as well. Now, on the section on the side, warming up, Paul called the Philippians to practice the things that they heard, received, heard, and seen in him. That's what Philippians 4:9 says. Hopefully, every single one of you can think of people who have mentored you along the way. I think probably you at least have one name in your head. Hopefully you have more than that. Maybe there's several that have led you with it. Sometimes it's good to like think about those people and just like write their names down. If you didn't do that yet, if you didn't write down a name of someone who mentored you, like do that. Because what you can do is look and see, what did they do for me? So you can think, what can I do for others? How can I take that and do something with it? So that's really, really helpful to consider it from that angle. Anything that you want to mention? Thoughts, comments before we jump in to the actual lesson?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to have people that you know have been, from experience, give you good advice in the past. And,
Right.
and don't be afraid to call on them. I've got 4 or 5 people that I go to when I got something I don't understand or need guidance on. And, I don't always take what they tell me, but at least I take it and try to learn from it.
Right, exactly. And it's good to have those relationships and continue to build those, and you have someone that you can reach out to. I mean, it's just, we don't have to be in this alone, and we shouldn't be in this alone. We have wise counsel and all of those things. And depending on the relationship, I mean, I can think of people for specific things. Like if I'm wanting to know how to be a better servant to people, there's some people in my head I know I could ask this person. If it was something about like how to be a more effective teacher, I know people for that, or if I want to know how to be more evangelistic or how to be more holy or pure or whatever, like there are different people that come to mind for those things. And so it's good to have that in your mind so you know who to reach out to. And on top of that, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to say, hey, what do I do here? How do I handle this? So that's helpful. The very beginning part of this, though, mentoring zeal. Fires love to spread. And that's kind of what zeal should be, right? It's a fire that spreads, and we use that analogy a lot. But sometimes if you let people alone with their fire, they might try to burn unproductive things. And what happens sometimes is it burns out of control and then eventually just like dies out completely. And so what happens with like real life forests, like wildfires, that's a thing. They do controlled burns, and if you've ever seen that, it's really kind of, I think it's cool, but it's kind of a weird thought, but you set these little fires to control an area so that way later it doesn't burn completely out of control. Because if you just let everything like grow up and you have this undergrowth everywhere and it's just, then if a fire comes, it could just annihilate everything. But a controlled burn is like, I'm just going to go to this section and I'm going to watch it and I'm going to make sure. And you got people on standby who are like, working it to make sure it doesn't burn out of control. That's what mentoring can be for zeal fires that are burning in people. So we have things that we can point people in the direction of. We can give them ideas. And it's like, hey, why don't you take your zeal and do this? And it's just offering some advice there. So it helps to be even better. The last paragraph in that little section says, no matter what stage of life you're in, you have somebody that is trying to imitate your zeal. And as uncomfortable as that sounds, it's true. People are watching you no matter what, and people see what you do. And what we need to be doing is being mindful of that so we can be good examples and not just let that happen passively, but look and seek out opportunities where we can be an influence in the right ways. A lot of what we've talked about in this book, it boils down to intentionality, just recognizing how to see what needs to be done and then doing it. So finding a way to focus that energy, and in this case specifically, focusing that energy in someone else that you are mentoring, someone you are trying to bring up to be stronger in the Lord. Any thoughts on that? Obviously, the greatest example of anything we could ever think of is Jesus. And we look at Jesus and see how he interacted with his disciples. And you can kind of consider that. You think through the group of people that he chose to be his 12 apostles. What are some words that you would use to describe that group of people when Jesus found them, not after, at the beginning?
Very diverse.
Yeah, super diverse. Like, you had people who were you had a tax collector, and then you also had the zealot, and if you know anything about that, they're completely opposed. So you had that. What else?
Not highly educated.
Yeah. Not highly educated. You had a bunch of fishermen, and people who.
We're not knocking on fishermen, though, right?
Fishermen are great. I know a lot of fishermen that are a lot smarter than most of us. So yeah. But the perception. There we go. Obviously, I'm not smart, but perception of that it was, it was. They were mainly from like the Galilee region, which was like we're gonna get like really smart people from Galilee. But there was a lot of things working against them, but Jesus was able to take them where they were and to make something out of them. And make something pretty great, actually. Like, you see where they came, what they did. He was able to take their character and build on that. Now, there's one thing I will say about those 12 men. When he chose them, do you think that they were pretty dedicated and wanting to serve Jesus? Seems like it. Yeah, he chose people that really cared. So this shows you that willingness, that desire to do the right thing is a much stronger indicator of a successful student than the background of any sort. So we're not looking for like a certain demographic. It's like, well, how are you raised? What was your background like? What's your status on this? Do you want to serve the Lord? Do you love the Lord? And we can work with that. We can do something with that. And that's what Jesus found in them. All the other rough parts, we can sand that out later and fix that. But Jesus was able to take people who cared, who wanted to do something, and transform them through all that. So, like the zealot, Simon the Zealot, Jesus helped him work through some of those things, and he helped build unity between the group. That was really cool. But I really like this about James and John. If you remember that one time when Jesus was wanting to go to Jerusalem, this is Luke 9. He was wanting to go to Jerusalem, so he sent some messengers out ahead of him and said, okay, can you check out this Samaritan village and see if we could get some provisions there, see how that's going? And they were going to go there. But then they got the message back. It was like, Samaritans don't want nothing to do with you because you're headed to Jerusalem. Like, they don't like that at all. Remember what James and John said? It's like, hey, let's do it old school style. Remember how like fire came down and consumed? Yeah, let's do that. And what did Jesus say? No, yeah, we're not doing that. Like, that's not what we're here for. We're here to like seek and save the lost, not to destroy them in a fiery inferno. So that was their perspective needed to change. Like, they were. Now, would you say that James and John were pretty zealous in that moment for God's work? Yeah. They were like, burn the place down. But Jesus was like, nope, controlled fires. Let's rein this in a little bit. We need to take care of the things that need to be taken care of. So, and Jesus, the way he does this, he was so patient with them. Like, just imagine if you were Jesus and you know what your goal is in your mindset, and then your closest disciples come to you. It's like, hey, let's just go do that. And it's like, okay, no, that's not what we want to do right now. He has a lot of patience in this. So I think that helps us to think through as well. Sometimes when you get close to people and they're on the right track, sometimes they say something completely off the wall. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, that's obviously not going to help. But we need to have patience. We need to help people work through that and see what they need to do. And so we can definitely learn that from Jesus. He also mentions what we were saying before. Jesus saw the heart. And Jesus knew who was wanting to discover, things about him. And so when we are looking for those mentoring relationships, I think one thing to consider is just, are people willing to do what's necessary? And that's really it. Like, you don't have to be like the same type of person. You don't have to be interested in the same things. You don't have to do that. It's just, what do we have people who are passionate and faithful? And that's really the goal there. And that's kind of what we see here. Any thoughts on that? Would you think that all mentoring relationships look the same? No, not at all. And so to say that here is the exact method that you must use when you are mentoring someone else or when you are being mentored, we can't say that. You can't just throw out, here's the exact procedure for how to do this. This is when you meet the first time. Here's what you do. Here's what you say. We have this organic approach. It's different people are in different places. You are in a different place. And your style, the way that you approach things, are going to look different than what someone else does. And that's getting back to kind of what we opened with, thinking through who has mentored you, what are some of their strengths, what did they do. People do that much differently. And so it's good to have variety because that can help a lot. That being said, there are some things to consider with mentoring and with looking at the next generation, how to help people to be closer to the Lord. And there's a few things that tend to be pretty effective, and we'll look at those bit by bit. So inspecting. So what does it mean to inspect? Yeah, look over, check it out, where are you at? We have to kind of make a diagnostic check just to see where people are, what are they doing, what do they know, what do they don't. And great coaches watch their players practice same moves thousands of times. Not that that's a real exciting thing to do, but it helps them to know, okay, this is what they're good at, this is what they're not good at, so let's try to figure out how to make them even better. And a lot of times, I love this sentence. Their mature perspective allows them to recommend minor adjustments that bring big improvements. And it does happen like that. And the more mature you are, the more that you've been through and the more that you see, the better you're able to help others with those tiny tweaks. Now, okay, Luke 10. Turn there real quick. Luke 10, this is when Jesus sends out the 70. Verse 1 of Luke 10, Lord appointed 70 others, sent them in pairs ahead of him to every city and place where he was going to come. And this is the passage. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And he's like, I'm sending you all out, just two at a time, and you're going to go, and you're going to just prepare the way, you're going to teach and that sort of thing. He gives them several different instructions. But let's look at verse 17. Someone read verses, just go 17 through 20.
The 70 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I was watching Satan fall from heaven like lightning. Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing will injure you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are
Thank you very much. So you see this is like just prime time good mentoring, okay? Did Jesus give the people, the 70 that he sent out, powers to do things? Yeah, he did. He gave them authority. He gave them the gifts, the talents, whatever, that they needed to get the job done. And they came back, and what were they most excited about?
You putting the devil down in his name.
Yeah, I was like, even the demons listen. Like, we cast them out in your name, obviously, but like we were able to cast them out. They were subject to us. They listened. And that would be amazing. Like, wouldn't it? Like, just to think, I was able to cast a demon out of someone through the power of Jesus, obviously. And Jesus is like, yeah, buddy, that's great. Like, that was so good. And I gave you all these other things. Like, that was amazing. But don't forget the most important thing. Like, you can be excited about all of these works that you're involved in, all those. But the thing you should be most excited about is that your name is written in heaven. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's like it changes the way you approach things. It changes like how they thought about that. Because like just imagine, I like this. This is kind of like a debriefing because the 70 went out, they come back and report, and Jesus is like, yeah, you did great work. I was watching Satan fall from heaven. Like you were out there, you were doing great things. But I don't want you to leave here thinking that was the most important thing. Like that's not. Just be impressed with this idea that you can have a relationship with God, that you have that connection, because that will get you through a lot of stuff. So sometimes when you see that the person you're mentoring is just really super excited about something, like that's great. Like we should be excited about that. That's something we should be involved in and all that. But don't forget like the big ideas here, that you have a relationship with the Lord. You are a child of God, and we have that connection. And that's what you need to hold on to, because if you build on that, then you can grow in other areas a lot easier than if you were just focused on some of these individual things. So that was interesting. Jesus was with these people quite a while, right? He had daily conversations with most of them for like 3 years, 3.5, and that was a goodly portion of time. We need to make sure that when we are investing in someone, that we want to invest in that not just once, not just like, hey, let's meet up and I want to encourage you and you're going to go off and you're going to be awesome. Like it takes time, and we need to know that we're needing to stick with that over time, and that's what's really going to build the character and things. All right, anything else on inspecting? One thing to see, it's another thing to help someone work through things, informing. Jesus, throughout the gospel, was giving instructions and telling people how to do things better. Mark 4:34 talks about how he was teaching in parables, but then what was he doing with his disciples? Explaining them. Yeah, and so the disciples were able to get like the inside information. They were the people who really stuck with him and asked the questions, and so he was able to guide them and say, well, this is what I was talking about. This is what I meant. Like, it's not actual seed, and it's not like actual dirt, but there's something deeper here. And he was able to explain all of those things. And that's what mentoring is. You are able to explain things a little better. You're able to give them, a bigger approach, analyze things a lot better. But also, it's not just arming them with knowledge. That helps. But also experience as well. You think about all the times Paul is talking to Timothy. Let's look at 2 Timothy 3. He tells Timothy a couple things here that I think is really helpful. So in 2 Timothy 3, someone care to do 10 through 12?
You, however, have followed from them all the Lord rescued me. Indeed, all who desire to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So he's telling Timothy there, don't forget the things that you've heard me talk about and the things that you've seen me do as well, those things that we're involved in. It's not a comfortable thing to talk about all of the persecutions, the hardships, the dangers, and all of that. But Timothy needs that. He needs to hear that, and he needs to be reminded of that. And just like Paul's like, I went through a bunch of stuff. Like, they tried to kill me in every one of these cities. Like, just realize that when you do the right thing, people are going to want to turn on you, and people will go after you. All who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. Like, that's a promise. And when we see that, that's not a comfortable thing to think about and talk about. But we need to make sure that people are aware of the situation and what's going to happen, because we understand that that is a thing that is coming up. So Paul, throughout all of this, I think he's giving Timothy the things that he needs to hear, but he's also giving him encouragement that he's like, hey, listen, I've done it. I went through that. You know it. So if this happens to you, and it will, you can endure. You can last through it too. And that's encouraging, right? I mean, a lot of us, we don't like to think about the trauma that we've experienced in our lives, the difficult times, all of those things. But what we can use that for is encouraging others who are going through tough times or who might go through tough times at some point. And we could be like, hey, listen, this is what I did. This is how I got through that. This is how the Lord worked through me here. Do the same. Here's some resources. Here's what I did. And the way he puts it here, sometimes even unsolicited advice is necessary. If you have those relationships with people and you are mentoring someone especially, sometimes they don't ask exactly, what do I need to do in this situation? What do I need? Maybe they just need you to step in and be like, look, I know that you're going through something. Here's how I got through this. Here's what the Lord did in my life. And so we need to be willing to step up and say those things when it's necessary. We want to help them succeed in whatever way possible. So we can do things like, and you think about how you got through tough times, how you were able to grow. And it doesn't even have to be like tough times. It can be something that you just know that they need to grow in certain areas. You can share with them, here's what I did. Here's a book I read that really helped. Here's a sermon that I heard that was really cool, and this helped. All of those things. We're just offering resources and helps so that way other people can also be informed. All right, any other questions, comments on that?
Doesn't have to always be bad for mentoring.
That's a good point.
Some people, they don't handle joy very well, or just aren't very joyful in general. So sometimes showing someone that side is good as well.
That's a really good point. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, it's not, doesn't always have to be doom and gloom, bad. Here's everything that you were doing that is just awful. It could be joy, and it's like, we as Christians, should we be joyful people? I think, that we have a lot of joy in the Lord. And so if you see someone struggling with that, it's helpful to be like, hey, this is what makes me happy about the Lord. This is what brings me joy. This is how to look at some of those things. So that could be very helpful as well. It's a whole holistic approach, and just making sure that we're encouraging others in that as well. Any other thoughts? I personally think that involve is one of my favorite out of all of these, because it really gets to the heart of the matter of how do you encourage someone to do something, or how do you instruct someone how to get more involved or whatever. And if you involve them in the work, And if you're like, hey, let's do this together, or hey, you should do this, that's really helpful. Like if someone just comes up to you and is like, hey, let's go and visit this person, or hey, let's start reading the Bible together, like once a week or something. Let's go and start this somewhere, whatever it is. This is kind of what Jesus did with his disciples. Remember, he was like, hey, follow me. Come on, let's go. And the things that he got the disciples involved with were a lot of different things. Some of them, he mentions, were like getting food, transportation. Others were directly teaching or healing or even praying. And I think of examples of when people have done that in my life. There was a guy, he was 1 or 2 years older than me. So he wasn't like a lot older than me. But when I was in college, he was like, you should start a Bible study here on campus at UK. And I was like, you're right. Yeah, I should. Let's do it. He was like, and you're going to lead it. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Got it. And then he was also like, you know what else we should do? We should get up every morning and pray before we go to classes and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Let's do that. And it was constantly, looking back on it, I was like, he was pretty manipulative there. That was smooth. But it was a period of growth for me, and just having someone that invested in me and was like, hey, let's do this, you can do it. It's like, oh, okay, you know what? I can. We can do things. So that is helpful when you're able to reach out to someone like that and just be like, hey, do that. And it just helps get you started with things. And again, different areas of service, different areas of prayer, teaching, whatever. Just being able to bring people in on board, and it's a hands-on learning thing for sure. And when you're working together like that, that's just so cool. Any other thoughts on that?
It might not always get done the way you think it should be done. So making sure as a mentor you're not really critical. As a mentee, you accept critiques. As a mentor, you have to realize that you are mentoring somebody who is typically more immature than you. And they might not always react the best way at first. And maybe they don't accept critique well. So just know your mentee, and as a mentee, understand that they're trying to do its best. But as a parent, having kids make muffins or something, and you're like,
Yep.
Watching them kind of cringing, that could be the same as having a mentor ask mentee to do something, and you're like, that's not how I would do it. But, yeah.
That's a really good point. A lot of times we have in our mind, this is the only way that things can be done, and this is how it needs to be. But if you're trying to instruct other people in getting involved, it's not always going to look the same. And it's not everybody's going to act the same way you do and do the same exact things that you do. And so we got to be willing to take a step back. It's like, okay, they're growing, they're seeing this. Maybe have a discussion of what did this look like to you? Here's what I would have done, but this works, and have some of those discussions as well. I think of times when Caleb took me and I would do something, and he's like, that's not really the way I would have done that, but that works for you. And so that led to some other discussions, which was really cool. But yeah, with those mentoring relationships, you have individual people, and everybody's different. And what we're not trying to do is to create carbon copies of you. Like I would be terrified if there was just a group of people exactly like me running around. That would be scary. But we are all individually different, and what we're trying to do is help push people toward the Lord. And we want them to be more like the Lord. And the Lord made us all different, and that's going to look different in a lot of ways. But we want to be there to help push them and encourage them to be zealous for Him. Good call. Anything else?
A lot of times our students get tired of being criticized. Even the best students get tired of being criticized. So as a good mentor, you need to look for reasons, look for excuses to brag on your students. And, hey, good job, you did this right. And a lot of times that will really kind of wake up their motivation to do more, to get you to brag on them more.
Spoken as a true teacher. I love that. Yeah, if you're only getting criticism all the time, that is so discouraging. And no matter how good you are at taking criticism, that wears on you. And so finding ways to encourage, to say, you did great on this, and I love this in you. That was good. I mean, we saw that with Jesus in the 70, because remember they came and they were like, hey, we did all this, and demons were subject. And he was like, yeah, you did. That was great. And you did all this stuff too. That was really cool. So in anything, we need to find the encouragement to be able to help and push and motivate, because there would be a lack of motivation if we had zero encouragement. Let's look at the intercede part. Sometimes when you look at what's going on for someone, you realize they are in over their head. They have no idea what to do here. They're completely lost in this situation. So I'm gonna step in and I'm gonna help. I'm gonna be like, okay, slow down. Look at this situation, see what's happening, and let's consider this. The example there was Matthew 17. Peter came and asked Jesus about this poll tax that they were collecting, and he was like, I don't know what to do with that. So Jesus helped him out. He worked through some things, like asked questions, helped guide him, and he helped Peter find a solution to this. Now, not all the time are we able just to step in and fix things for people. And actually, most of the time I would say that that's not the best approach. But what we can do is help people work through what they're going through. And especially if we see something that they don't realize is a major problem, but we know this is where that's headed. So I need to help work through that with them so they know what to do. And we can encourage through experience instead of discouraging them by saying, wow, this is awful. So that definitely helps as well. Another aspect of interceding is prayer. And we cannot forget how important that is. I mean, praying for people. Do you remember how many times Paul said he was praying for someone else? Infinite number of times. I mean, he said that a lot about so many different people. He was really concerned about them and cared about them. How much do we pray for each other? And how much do we pray about what other people are going through, how they're going to grow, those sorts of things? That is a major tool we can use. And if you have that mentoring relationship, finding ways to pray for the person that you're mentoring, scheduling it. I like how he says, maybe you schedule it at first, set a reminder on your phone or something. Pray for this person to do this. But eventually, let it become second nature, and so it's something that you're always involved in. So that can definitely help as well. Anything else on interceding? There's also inspire. And this is what will really help with mentoring. If you really think, okay, what is my goal for the person that I'm mentoring? What do I want them to do? What do I want to accomplish with this? Well, hopefully it is to inspire them to look to God more closely, to be closer to the Lord and do those things, but to not give up and not be discouraged. The things that Jesus told his disciples and the lessons that he taught, on this rock I will build my church and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. It's like nothing's going to stop it. And hearing Jesus himself say that, it's something about if you have a close relationship with someone and they give you some just really encouraging words, it tends to stick with you a little better. And when you hear that, it's like, okay, yeah, that's right. Doing the right thing will pay off. And even though, as Paul told Timothy, you're going to face persecutions, it's worth it. And you have all of this hope to look forward to, and knowing that the Lord is with you. So, like, it's an inspirational type thing, and that definitely helps with that. We want to make sure that when we are mentoring, it's that we're trying to inspire to greater action, to greater zeal, and greater love for the Lord. Anything else on that? Inspiring. I kind of like this on page 95, on the side, growth environment. And this is, John Maxwell, but 10 factors that are true of growth environments. We want to try to make sure that we are always in the mindset of having a growth environment, growth mindset. And we want people to be focused on that. So one thing says others are ahead of you. So we realize that when it comes to growth, I am not the sign of perfection. I have not arrived. There is something else I can do. And we have that as sort of an encouragement, as something somewhat of a goal. And along with number 2, you are continually challenged. So it's like not everything is just status quo. It's not just the same all the time. There are things that are challenging and opportunities to get involved in. And there's another one I'll say as well. You're often out of your comfort zone. So being able to step out of your comfort zone and do things that are hard, that are difficult, that are uncomfortable, and being willing to be in an environment where people are doing that on the regular, like continually doing that, so that way we can be pushing each other toward that. Our focus is forward. This is a big one because I think a lot of times people are like, if we could just have the church of the 1950s, we'd be good. It's like, okay, chill. Like, no, what we need to think about is where we are now and where we're going in the future. No, it doesn't help to dwell on the past. And by the way, a lot of times when we think about the past, we have a skewed view of it anyway. Some people might say, well, what about, I want to be like the church in the first century. Well, that's true. But you know what else they had to deal with? Like a lot of stuff that we wouldn't want to have to deal with. So there wasn't like a perfect time for the church in history. But what we can look at is where we are right now and reaching forward to what's coming. And continue to push forward. The atmosphere is affirming, like it's a little positive encouragement there. It's like, yeah, we can do this. It's inspiring. We're always looking for ways to do that. You wake up excited. Now that one's tough because sometimes you don't wake up excited. But if there is a goal that you're working towards, especially collectively, and you're in this growth mindset, it can change the way that you look at the day. And so maybe we all I need to be better at this. Like setting a reminder on your phone to like wake up and pray immediately for like the work that's going on. So you can think about how am I using my time today to increase this growth mentality, this growth mindset? How can we help others in that way as well? Failure is not your enemy. What do you think that means?
You're going to mess up, everybody else does too.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you do when you mess up? Exactly. You learn from it. It's those times where we really grow in our faith and we really get better and we, that helps a lot. It's a growth, okay, I like this, growth environment if others are growing. Because sometimes I think we're so self-centered and self-focused. It's like, just as long as I'm growing, I'm getting what I need, I'm good. Like, look at others and make sure that you're helping out with that. Now, obviously all kinds of other things there, but hopefully that gets us started. I think, being more intentional about how we mentor and how we reach out to the people who are younger. And I didn't say anything about if you realize that you are someone who could benefit from mentoring, seek out people and seek out ways that you can do that. Find somebody you trust and, work towards that. Anyways, we will pick up, Lord willing, Wednesday on lesson 20. Thank you, guys.